Many of you know that I'm a landscape photographer as well as a college professor. As a philosophy professor, I spend a considerable amount of time each semester discussing beauty and art, which are the major theme of a branch of philosophy called aesthetics. It is also a frequent theme in many of my essays, which are compiled in my published book, Random Thoughts in Philosophy. As a photographer, one of the questions that I get asked most frequently is this: is photography an art? Well, for a good answer to this question, I think it is necessary to first raise the question about art, which is both a philosophical and a practical question. It is philosophical because numerous philosophers in history have discussed and written about it, and different philosophers have answered it in different ways. It is practical because we come across it almost daily. We read about it, hear people talk about it, and we often ask the question ourselves. First of all, how do we define art? Well, art is a word that is difficult to define, partly because it means different things to different people, which is why so many philosophers have come up with different theories, and partly because there are so many different types and forms of art. Nonetheless, I'll try to give a definition anyway. But before that, let's consider some works of what we call art. A painting, a poem, a piece of music or dance, a play, an abstract sculpture, or a novel. If you try to give a specific answer to this question, your description will not apply to everything. For example, you may specifically consider painting and say that art produces a visual and a perceptual pleasure for the audience. But what about a novel, which is obviously not visual? You may point to dance and say that art represents the beauty of real life. But what about the abstract sculpture, which obviously does not represent real life? If you try to be general by saying, for example, that art is a form or expression of an implicit meaning, your description appears too vague because, by definition, the word implicit implies something vague, unclear. Obviously, such a definition only confuses people. Well, we may put the question a different way. What do they have in common that make them works of art? You may have found that they all have one thing in common, and that is they are all created by people. So you will argue that art is about creation as opposed to science, which is about discovery. It is true that an artist's job is to create something. But can you claim that everything they create is a piece of art? Some say that art expresses the emotions or feelings of the artist. But such an answer is problematic as well. Suppose you, as an artist, accidentally hurt yourself, and so you uttered a certain remark in anger. Was that an artistic expression? By now, you may realize that defining art is really difficult. However, as a professor of philosophy, I keep saying that answering a philosophical question is important, but it is not as important as the process of seeking an answer, because in the process of seeking an answer, we encounter a lot of related questions, and by attempting to answer those related questions, we learn much more than the answer itself. For example, when we try to define art, we will come across questions such as these. Is a work of art a physical object? If so, what about a piece of music? Is music a physical object? There is the sheet music and there is the sound. Do they together form what we call music? What if we burn the sheet music and cancel the performance? Have we destroyed the music? Another example, if a nude statue in the park is a work of art, what about a naked human being standing in the same park? How do you tell porn or obscenity from beauty? Different people will have different answers to those questions. Therefore, it is extremely difficult to come up with a definition which will satisfy everyone. However, we should always keep in mind that good answers to philosophical questions are found in the process of seeking those answers, which is the essence and beauty of doing philosophy. Having said that, I still cannot resist the temptation to offer you my definition of art. In my opinion, a piece of art is a product of skills and imagination which is beautiful or which expresses significant ideas or feelings. There are a couple of things about this definition that I want to call your attention to. First, in this definition, I emphasize skills and imagination because if something is produced with no skills or imagination required, no one will consider it as art. Therefore, if you are an artist, you must possess certain skills which not everyone can easily acquire. An artist is different from an ordinary person simply because he or she possesses those skills and uses their imagination in a unique way. Without imagination, you would be unable to conceive of new ideas and would be limited to creating only what is already known. When anyone and everyone can make something, it can never be a piece of art. In addition, my definition of art also emphasizes the point that a piece of art should be beautiful. Well, before you start arguing with me, I'm aware that it is a controversial point because so many people have tried to define beauty and there are so many different definitions. So let me spend a little time now talking about beauty. By the way, I have recently made several videos on the subject of beauty, and in those videos I looked at beauty from a practical point of view. If you are interested, please check them out on my channel. But in today's video, I will take a philosophical perspective. Just like the term art, the term beauty is also difficult to define. Not only do I find it difficult to define, but even great philosophers have also had difficulties coming up with satisfactory answers. But as I said a moment ago, in doing philosophy, whether or not there is an answer is not important. What is important is the process of looking for an answer. In the process, you come across more and more questions, and you become more and more enlightened when you try to answer those questions. In the case of beauty, for example, there are many questions which need to be asked. Do we have to be educated to know what beauty is? How much knowledge do we have to make a valid judgment? Is our judgment objective or is it purely personal and subjective? You may think The last question is rather easy to answer because, after all, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, as the saying goes. If you follow this line of thinking, you will conclude that beauty is entirely subjective and art is whatever pleases you. However, some studies have showed that there is a high level of agreement among many people, including people from different cultures, that certain physical features make people more beautiful. Also, do you realize that some people are judgmental and they decide some works of art are more beautiful than others? For example, when you decorate your home and purchase some paintings, you have to decide which painting is worth your money, because paintings are valued in terms of price. You must have a standard by which you make your purchasing decision. If so, beauty is no longer subjective but objective. In addition, what you see as beautiful here may not be beautiful over there. A girl in bikini walking around in a shopping mall, is she beautiful? What about the same girl in the same bikini walking on the beach? In spite of the difficulties and controversies, let me nevertheless give you a definition of beauty. In my opinion, beauty is the quality of an object or a human being which gives pleasure to the senses or the mind. The key word here is pleasure. If you don't feel certain pleasure, it is not beautiful to you. By the way, even though we say that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, the eye is not the only sense to feel beauty. Beauty is also in the ear of the listener. Well, that is all that I wanted to talk about today. But before I go, let me answer the question raised at the very beginning of this video, that is landscape photography a form of art? My answer is yes. In my opinion, landscape photography is very much like a painting. It is a very personal way of capturing the landscape. Some may capture it in colors, and others in black and white. They use different skills to capture light and shadow, shape and form, and so on. By using different skills and techniques, a photographer conveys a different mood, emotion, and tells a different story. Photography is an art for another reason. An artistic picture always inspires creativity and passion. Of course, not all photographs are created to be artworks or as forms of artistic expression. And not all photographs are created to be equally artistic and equally beautiful. Now that you have watched this video, please be the judge of my photo, which is coming up in a moment. Is it an example of my definition of art? Namely, a piece of art is a product of skills and imagination which is beautiful or which expresses significant ideas or feelings. Do you think this photo is a work of art? Thank you for watching this video, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next one.